Hey guys, Talos here. This is the third in the series of the Overwatch workshop tutorials. Today I'm going to go through some visuals. We're going to talk about a couple of different really cool visual things that are available to us in the workshop. We're going to talk about how to create some heads-up displays. We're going to create our own scoreboards. We're going to track some fun things and put those on the screen. You've seen those probably in a lot of the different modes you've been playing. Things like F to upgrade or any of these custom scoring modes. I'll show you how they're creating those heads-up displays, how you can do your own, and what limitations we have. I'm also going to cover some of the unique little visuals that we can load into the game. I think you've probably seen, if you played any of these games, random spheres and light circles and just different things that people are using to simulate art assets. When we don't have art that we can use, we have a couple of basic geometric shapes that they've given us to be able to use as these tools. We've got some colors and things. I'm going to show you what those look like, and I'm going to go through how we've seen maybe the F to upgrade mode, if you've played that, how it's actually doing what it's doing to create all these visuals. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to address the workshop update. So if you'll notice, there's a little bit of a difference to the screen right here. There's actually no blue background anymore. This background's a little bit different, and it seems to change based on what maps you're on and what's going on. Sometimes I can see characters in the background. I don't know if I like it or not. But what I do like are some of the features that they've added to the actual screen itself. So you'll notice, let me add just some generic rules here. I don't really care what. Add some more rules. But I want to point out a couple of things here, these checkboxes. Now these checkboxes, when I actually go into one of these rules and I check it, I can now go up, down, using these right here. Makes it a lot easier to order things. This is a copy. I can do a copy and then paste. It'll paste the same thing. This right here is on or off. I can actually turn things on or off without having to use my conditions. And what's really neat is when I do 1, 2, 3, or even all of it, utilizing these copy functions, it actually copies to the clipboard. So you can then go in and paste this to a notepad or to Word docs or any sort of medium that you want that'll hold code, especially if you're using any like text pads or any formatters. It actually allowed you to do the entire workshop mode that you've created, copy it, save it off to text somewhere else, and then you can copy it to text and come in here and just do a paste for whatever you have already copied, and it'll paste it as if you had done a copy and a paste inside the tool itself. And then of course this big red trash can is delete. It still confirms that you want to delete things. Nice, neat, cool feature they've added, and it actually allows us to be able to back up and restore outside of the application. So it's definitely something worth noting. Alright, so let's jump into it. Now I've done some work already. I've set up a couple things, but I don't want to hide anything from you guys. I want to show you what I've done. So I've just set up skirmish mode. Basically this is some things I can jump in and out of very, very quickly, and it also allows me to throw some bots in there. So I got a couple of Annas running around in case we need to do something to her. And I just picked one map, Blizzard World. Now the important part of picking this map is it allows me to go in and specify certain locations in the map ahead of time, which is what I've done. And you'll see that here when I get into these effects. And that allows me to just sort of save you guys time to keep from me running around and showing you how to do these things. I'll show you how to do it once, but that way I don't have to show you how to do it 6 or 7 times to show you each of the different effects. So let's go ahead and get into this. Now I separated it into 2 different things just for the screen, but I'm still going to do a little bit of scrolling. So let's talk about the effects. So what I've done here is I've created a ongoing condition, so every time any player does whatever my condition is, these actions are going to be executed. So this allows every player to do that. And the action here is the interact button, and the interact button is used in a lot of games because most people don't play it as a course of playing the game, and you can just sort of purposefully hit that button to make something happen. So it's a nice, easy way to do something, especially in testing mode. I use interact a lot. And it's going to utilize this feature here, this create effect. Now what a create effect does, if you go into these creates here, you'll see these are the different things that we're going to actually use as we go through the things today. Create effect allows me to create a variety of different effects or visuals in the game that aren't really related to an asset like a player character or a model or anything along those lines. They're just little geometry, little visual things. I can say who it's visible to. Can only your team see it. Can only you, the player who's actually doing this action or having this action happen to them, see it. And which team it is. I can tell you which type it is, and this is the important part. They've given us a handful of things to deal with here. So they've given us a sphere, which is a big circle. I think you may have seen that used in some of the examples as well. They use very large spheres to create arenas and things. A light shaft, which is just a little circle of light coming down from the heavens into the spot you tell it to. An orb, which looks like a floating ball of chewing gum. Ring, you'll see it. It's actually tough to see sometimes. It's just a little circle on the ground. And these are the things that when you walk into the circle and you press interact to buy, and this allows you to sort of create that look. A cloud is just sort of a cloud of stuff. Sparkles, nice sparkly things. Good aura, you'll see that looks like a gate in a racing game where you go through the circle. And then a bad aura, which just looks like a tempest of things. And there's also all these sounds here where you can play sounds as well. Now, I'm not going to do the sounds right now. We're just doing visuals. And so what I've done is I've created one of each of these, and I'll show you each of them. You can pick the color. Now, you've got a variety of colors, white, yellow, green, so forth and so on. And then Team 1, Team Blue are your colors for your team accordingly. Basically, you're going to use these colors to sort of get to what you want. And then the position. Now, I'm going to do a different entire session on what vectors are and what positions are and how the actual system uses these things. But for now, just know that a vector represents the space and time, an X and a Y and a Z. And that if you're in the game and you're playing, anywhere you want to be, even in spectator mode, and you want to capture a specific place, pressing this little button right here just records when you're in the game exactly where your character is and saves the X, the Y, the Z here for you. So it's really good to go in and create, and you'll see how I've done each of these different vectors. I basically moved around the map before I started the recording here and just saved a bunch of different spots. So what I'm going to do when I get into the maps, I'm going to show you, I'm going to hit the interact button. It's going to create a white sphere, a shaft, an orb, a ring, a cloud, some sparkles, the good aura, the bad aura. And then I've got these effects here as well in red, so you can see those too. So let's go in. Let's go see what that looks like real fast. Let's just go ahead and start this right up. And you can see what the visual effects that we have to choose from actually look like. One of the things that I found when playing around here was not knowing what things looked like until I actually got in here and played with them. I didn't really know how I wanted my game to look. So when I press my buttons, you will see there's a sphere. This is where you can go inside of this. You see, this is the limits where they're doing Fortnite style games. This starts really little large and gets smaller and smaller and smaller. These are the light shafts. This is the run into it, or the teleportations where things are loading in. Big ball of chewing gum. I don't know that I've seen these used for much, but you can use those if you're trying to create an effect, like you're trying to create your own weapon, throwing something at someone. There's the bananas.
Your strength fades.
On. Here's some clouds. These just sort of are cloud spaces, but there's a thing here that tells you where the clouds are. This is the red circle that I'm standing in. Here is the sparkles. A lot of the people are using these parkour style maps to represent here's where the gold's located. This is for racing maps. This is the good aura. You can pass through this. But it's really
I'm under attack.
Thing. And then this is the bad aura. The bad aura.
Allow me to repair the damage.
So those are all the visuals that are there. They're available to you right out of the box. And you can, again, use these in any combination you want. You can place them wherever you want in that vector system. Let's go ahead and just go back to the lobby. Those animals are really going to annoy me if I don't do that. And that allows me basically to do any sort of visuals. So these vectors indicate those positions. I can create, for example, a sphere. And then anytime a player walks into that sphere, I can check to see where that player's location is. If it's inside of that sphere, then I can do certain things. And when the games like the Press F to upgrade, that's really what's going on there. They're drawing these rings on the ground. They know what the position is. And when you are pressing your interact button, they're checking to see where your position is. So if your position is inside the ring, because they have these vectors, and again, I'll discuss that in the next video, they're able to say, I know where you're at, and I'm going to execute whatever that ring says, okay? The other thing here to pay attention to is where prevalent, where matters, these radius values. You can actually set these. This controls how large or how small that is. So those spheres, for example, can be the size of the entire map, and can shrink accordingly over time, or you can make them very, very small. You can also position things here. It allows you to do things like the actual player itself. So you could choose event player. So when this player presses the interact button, for example, this is going to create a light shaft on that player. So that light shaft would be around that player. You can do the same thing with spheres, clouds, and so forth. So this allows you to start to create some of those effects you see. If I want to create some new damage effects to that player, and I want to say that this player has been cursed and there's damage over time, I could create a green cloud over that player that lets you know that the player's been actually poisoned, for example. And really all I'm doing is creating green clouds, and then I'm going to do a little something extra on the side to actually do that damage. We'll get to that here in a minute too. Okay, so those are the visuals that allow me to sort of create visualizations in the world. Let me go ahead and step back on out real quick and get rid of these Anas. I had those here for something later, but they are going to be annoying, so let's go ahead and get rid of them now. And let's talk about one more thing here. And this is going to be, I can do global, or I can do each player heads-up displays. And so heads-up displays, what they allow me to do is create those scoreboard type actions. So I'm going to go ahead and create one here for this player. I'm not going to have any conditions. And what that's going to do is it's going to draw the scoreboard for me when the player comes into the game for that player. And I'm going to use this create, and I'm going to use this create HUD text. So HUD stands, of course, for heads-up display. Who this is visible to, I can have this be visible to everybody. So in the case of a scoreboard, when I draw the HUD text, each player draws their own heads-up display. When they come in, and those heads-up display are viewable to all players, I can actually just have that viewable to the character itself. I can have it viewable to your team. It's really what you want to try to do with the actual heads-up display. You got lots of options there, really. So it comes in a couple sections. There's a header section, there's the subheader, and there's the text. Now, the best way to describe this is to sort of fill them all out and let you see, and so we're going to do that here. But the header itself is the larger font. If you've seen, there's a large black box, and inside of that box you've seen some text, for example. That's in the header, and we're just going to leave this default string value of hello, and we're going to come down here just a second. We're going to bounce around for you, and this header is going to be in the white text, so the text of the header is actually going to be white. So let's go into this subheader. Now the subheader sits to the right of the text. It's not quite the header, but it's not quite the actual body of that text of the HUD. And we can put really anything we want in here as well. We can put lots of variables. We can put all these different mathematical calculations. You can do lots of things to say, you know, what is, for example, the payload progress position, the position rather, how far along it is, or what percent is it? Is it 20%, 30%? How far along has it been pushed? You can do any of the player variables. Like I said, you can do any of the global variables, any of the variables we talked about in the previous video. You can actually load those in here as well. So if you're tracking your own score, for example, you can do either the base score, you can do the score of, and you can say the score of the player, basically the player that's drawing this heads-up display. And that's if you're using any mode where score is actually being tracked by the mode itself, and you're not doing your own tracking of score. Or you could track the score in one of the player variables, and you could print that variable here. The other thing here is the text. And so the text, I'm going to actually do a couple of cool things here and show you what this looks like. So when I click the string, it's actually going to expand here and give you a couple of things that I didn't talk about earlier, but I want to talk about now. So the string itself is a large list of things that Blizzard has given us to work with by default. So any of these words that you see can be printed on the screen. For example, I can say initial levels, initial hostage, all of these types of things. Any of this wording will print exactly like that. Next objective would be what would be printed. If I go all the way back over here to the top, though, I want to show you something special. You see these curly braces? This curly 1, curly 0, curly 1, curly 2. Underneath this string, you'll actually see a 0, a 1, and a 2. What that actually means is I can put a string of characters here, and I can choose something to go in a 0, something to go in a 1, and something to go in a 2. And in this case, it'll be whatever I put in 0, a space, whatever's in 1, a space, whatever's in 2. I can do greater than, less than, I can do this and this, I can do 0 number of seconds, exclamation points, 0, 0 commas, lots of different things that they've given us the opportunity to do. But every time you see these curly braces, for example, here's some colons, you can actually, I'm going to use this dashed one, I like that one. You can actually pick whatever's in 0, will go here, whatever's in this 1 spot will go there, obviously in the 2 spot will go there. So let's go to this 0, and let's actually say I can do string again, and look, it just keeps going and going and going. Now obviously you don't want to go too deep, but you can put a lot of information on the screen if you think about this. So what goes in this first position, I could create another string of 3 more characters. Then there would be 3, 0, 1, 2. Then there would be 1. I can do another 0, 1, 2. There's a 2. I can do another 0, 1, 2. So right there is 9 things in a row that I can put there. So in the just to be quick and simple, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick this string value, and I'm just going to pick some random stuff that's here already available for us. I'm going to say deliver is going to be the string in 0, and then in 1, I'm going to say it's a string as well, and I'm going to say deliver. And I'm going to choose payload, and then I'm going to go down here for 2. I'm going to say it's a string, and then we're going to pick, I think there's a now in here, deliver payload unknown. Perfect. For the location, so where do you draw the scoreboard? You've got 3 choices. All the way over here to the left, in the top, it sort of centers, and then all the way over here to the right. So you can build left, right, depending on the team. You can do top if you're replacing the entirety of the scoreboard. I'm going to choose left, and then we're going to talk about sort order. Now you can draw multiple heads-up displays. I can draw one that does a certain number of things, and I can draw another one underneath it that does even more, and then another one underneath that does even more. And when you have that, which order you draw them in becomes important. By default, they all say 0, so it's just going to draw them in the order that it encounters them. But you could say this would be in position 1, so it would always draw top. The next one I build is in position 2, it'll always be below that. And the third one's in position 3 below that. And then finally, you get to choose colors. So we talked about white's our top color. I'm going to make this yellow. I'm going to make this green. And there we go. And then how often do I reevaluate what's in there? Do I reevaluate every time the visible to changes and the string values change, or just when it changes the string values? So what this means is as people are coming and going, maybe I want to change what I'm drawing here versus maybe I just want to change it based on the values in the string changing. In our case, we're just doing a bunch of things except for the score. So every time the score changes, I actually do want to reevaluate this. So this variable underneath the covers, this is a base option. As it goes up, it's going to be presented here, okay? Make a lot of sense? Probably not, but let's go look and see what it looks like. So here we go. This should be there by default. Shouldn't have to do anything to it. There are no conditions. So here we're going to go. Since I have skirmish, it'll let me go ahead and get started.
Welcome to Blizzard.
Pick just any old body. There we go. Widowmaker and
One
boom.
shot.
So
One kill.
now, can't pause that to show you there, but if you look in the top left, you'll see hello in the white text on the black border. That's our header. You see the yellow text. That is the score. Score is 0. Obviously, I'm in a skirmish mode. That doesn't really matter, but I want to show what that looks like. And then remember those 3 values that we picked. First, then 0 in the little curly braces. That was the word deliver. Then payload, then unknown. That's my 0, my 1, and my 2. And that's what it looks like. Pretty neat. That allows us to create all sorts of different heads-up displays and scores. You may have seen one other thing, and I want to go ahead and show that here in the header. Instead of putting a string in that header, I'm actually going to do something here. I'm going to say hero icon string, hero of, and I'm going to go ahead and say the value here. Instead of specifying a specific hero, I'm just going to say the hero of whoever my player is. So what that's going to actually do is going to take something inside the system that's built and available to the players and allows you to draw that little icon. So I'm going to go ahead and restart it, and you guys can see what that looks like. You may have seen this in one or more modes. It's actually pretty neat. Picking anybody, open Winston, and look, it's a little picture of Winston. It allows you to see his photo there rather than the header string. And we can do the concatenation of his little picture. We can do things to the right of that. We can do things to the left of that. So let's go do that. Let's make that a little bit more advanced. So here we go. Now remember, we want to keep that in the header. So what we're actually going to do here is say, oh, what goes into that header value? Well, I'm going to say, I believe, we'll just get fancy here for a second and do a string. And what I'll do is I'll do a first value, and then I will do a second value right here. And then I'll do a third value. So let's do some semicolons between those. And in 0, I'm going to do hero icon string. And I'm going to do the hero of my player. So I always get the whoever you've chosen. And then in the 1 position, I'm actually going to do the player of... I'm sorry. Player in slot, and when I do players in slot, I do slot of event player. What it actually is doing underneath the covers is it's putting all the players into position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so forth, however many players you have. But this players value is actually going to give me the name of the character being played. And then finally, I'm actually going to do here the hero of event player, so you'll actually have the name of the character there as well. I probably should reverse those, but let's go ahead and jump in here, do a quick lobby, quick reset, and you'll see what's going on here. Explain what's happening. So that's Moira. So
Science
there you go.
will reveal the truth.
So you see the icon, you see the colon, you see the player in slot, so it's picking me. I'm the player in the slot. The slot is my character, the event player. So whichever slot I occupy is using my name. So that's how you would print the player's name. And then to the right of that, we picked the hero of, which is the name of the hero that I'm currently playing. And so if I were to change heroes, let's say May, because everybody loves the character that is May, you'll see her hero's name changes. Pretty neat, pretty cool, right? So this allows us visually to draw things on the world, anywhere we want to go. So let's run around out here, for example. I want to show you what that vector thing looks like. You remember I got these spheres all over here. Well, that sphere is over there. Let's move it right here. I go into the editor. Here's my effects. I find the one that's a sphere. See it right here? Push this button and you'll watch these 3 values get updated. There you go. And so now, do a restart for you one last time. Going into the lobby, going into a restart. And you'll be able to see that that's how you sort of position the spheres. Again, I did it to make the system
only to conflict
a little bit quicker. See, whoop, look at that. Right over there where we wanted it to be. So there's your visual effects. Lots of things to play with, lots to work into how these things are being used in creative ways. And we'll talk about a little bit of that later when we talk about vectors, positioning, and how we start to understand our place in the world. Pun intended. This is Talus. This has been number 3. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate all the likes and the few comments that have been out there. Thanks again. I've gotten more feedback here than I originally anticipated, so I'm very humbled. I thank you guys. If you would like, subscribe, do all those wonderful things, but also leave me some comments. Let me know if there's a specific topic you'd like for me to go through. If there's something you'd like for me to cover in detail, definitely all about making sure that this is what you guys want. I know there's lots of tutorials out there. There's lots of people that are doing some pretty advanced things, and I'm just trying to fill that gap of understanding for folks that maybe aren't quite up to the advanced stuff yet, filling in the basics. So let me know what it is when you want to see. Let me know if there's something that's confusing you or something you really would like for me to help you walk through. Also, I'm looking to maybe do some live broadcasts in the future. I'm going to do what I like to call the what in the heck, and just pick some running modes. Open up the code, look in the code, and try to figure out how they're making it do what they're making it do. I'm also willing to look at anybody's custom game codes you have out there, help you with anything that you might need looking at, and just sort of make it a little more interactive. If you're interested in something like that, also let me know. Shoot a comment, let me know. Again, thanks guys. This is Talus, and good luck. Have fun with your workshops.